Hi, I'm Rob, N1NUG. In today's video, I'm going to be exploring 6-meter FM mobile, primarily using repeaters. So to get started, I'm going to mount an antenna on my Corolla that will work with 6 meters. It's going to need a little trimming, so let's get in and take a closer look at what we're dealing with. So looking at the trunk of the car, over there is my 2-meter antenna. And this is connected up to my Kenwood TM281 that's been installed in this car pretty much since I bought it 9 years ago. Anyway, over here is the new antenna that I'm going to be using for 6 meters. The base is an NMO magnet mount, and I was a little concerned at first that it might not be strong enough to hold this antenna, but you can see if I bend it over all the way and tug on it, it's not going anywhere. So I think it should be okay. Now the antenna itself is actually something that I bought at a Hamfest a couple of years ago for about $5. You can see it's a Midland brand antenna. This is the model number 18327D. I think that's what that says. I don't have my glasses on. And it's printed down here below 40 to 50 megahertz. Now, as you can see, I've got it all installed here, but I have checked it on the analyzer, and this whip is just a little bit too long because it is cut for somewhere between 40 and 50 megahertz. Let's take a closer look at what I'm talking about. So I've got the coax running through the trunk of the car and up here to the front and plugged into my MFJ 259 antenna analyzer. You can see right now I've got the analyzer tuned to about 52 megahertz, which is roughly where the transmit frequency for 6-meter repeaters is. And you can see if we kind of tune around here, we're looking at around a 2-to-1 SWR or so. So not horrible, but I think we can do better with just a little simple trimming. Now, if I spin the dial down a little bit lower, we can find that the antenna is best somewhere around 42.8 megahertz, 42.7 or so. Actually, I think we'll call it good at 42.741 megahertz. That means that the whip on the antenna is a little bit long and needs to be trimmed in order to get it where we want it, up here around 52.5 megahertz or so. So now I'll just unscrew the set screws here on the antenna base. We'll pull the whip off, bring it inside where it's warm, and we'll figure out how much to trim this down. So the easiest thing I've found to use to cut these stainless steel whips is a Dremel cutoff wheel. Now, having said that, these can be a little dangerous. They can break, the little pieces can fly off, so I'm going to make sure I wear safety glasses when I do this. But you can just as easily use a hacksaw or something like that to cut these as well. Now, I've done some math, and I figured out that I think I need to cut actually 11 inches off of this whip in order to make it work right. Now, I'm not really trusting that math, so I'm not going to take all 11 inches all at once. I'm actually going to cut in 1-inch increments, and you can see I've kind of put some measurement marks here. And in fact, 1 inch might even be a lot to take off in one shot, so maybe even 1/2-inch increments would be better. But I am going to start at least with the first one at 1 inch, go out to the car, check it on the analyzer, and see what happens. So I've got that first inch cut off, and I've got the whip mounted back on the antenna base. Let's check the SWR on the analyzer and see what we've got. I apologize if this is a little bit dim. The sun is starting to set, so we're losing the light. But you can see now, with the inch removed, we're somewhere around 43 megahertz, maybe 43.1 for our kind of center frequency. So we're moving in the right direction. So since this is going to take me a little while between trimming an inch and coming back out here and checking it, by the time I'm done, it's probably going to be dark. So I'll check back with you guys in the morning and let you know what the results are. So last night, after I lopped about 5 or 6 inches off of this thing, 1 inch at a time, I remembered I had another whip, a shorter one, in my collection already. Now this second whip I have actually goes to a 220 megahertz mobile antenna that I've got. But I want to stick it on here just for now and see what it looks like, since it's already almost the length we would want for this to work at 52 megahertz. Now looking at the analyzer, you can see if I kind of spin around, we get up around 51 megahertz or so, 51.5, and it's actually looking pretty good. No reactance. We're getting a resistance of around 86 ohms or so. If I tune here, we're getting closer to 75. So I think this is actually going to work. Now the reason I think I'm going to use this other whip instead of trimming this one to length is because I've got to hit the road in a couple hours and head out towards Boston, and I've kind of run out of time. So I'm just going to lock this one in place, and we'll test this one out while I'm on the road. What I figured I would do is program in all the 6-meter repeaters in sort of central and eastern Massachusetts. Those will be sort of along my route and maybe reachable from where I'm going to be staying northwest of Boston. Now for figuring out which repeater to use, I've found that the most reliable source here in at least southern New England is the New England repeater directory. Once I figured out what repeaters I wanted, I programmed them into the memory of my FT891. You can see here I've got about, 12 or 13 in here, plus a couple of sideband frequencies in case I want to try that. And again, this is just for temporary testing purposes, just to see how all of this is going to work. Nothing is mounted permanently here. Now just for a demo, I've got the Mount Wachusett repeater programmed in here, 53310. Now this repeater is probably 40 or maybe even 50 air miles sort of northeast of me, and it's probably just a little bit more than halfway kind of between my house and where I'll be staying northwest of Boston. But let's give it a try, see how it sounds when I key it up. N1 NUG testing. Now you can see right there, we're getting it about S9, almost no background noise, so I'd call it just about full quieting. So we decided to try sideband first, actually, of all things. My friend John happened to have that ready to go in his radio, so we're on 50.165 upper side. Should be able to hear him.
Vertical, and it tuned up pretty quick. I don't know why. How copy? N1 NUG KB10YB.
Yeah, I'm just coming up the hill, not far from Craig's house, so yeah, copy's real good, nice and strong.
Let's try the repeaters. We know that'll work. You've got one that's maybe a little further away from me to try.
The 50.090. That one's in Massachusetts, near the Quabbin Reservoir somewhere.
Sure, it's 50.090.
Yeah, I misspoke. It's 53.090.
Okay. I'll tune it up and give it a try. N1 NUG mobile, KB10YB.
KB10YB and 1 NUG. Sounding good. Seems like it's working okay. Repeater's nice and strong here. I'm just getting into Sturbridge.
Maybe 5-6-7% white noise, that's it.
Okay, so I'm getting into it better than I'm receiving it, I think. I'm out here not far from Worcester, so going south of Worcester on the Mass Pike.
I'll be standing by on this frequency for the next 20 or so minutes. Not a problem. And drive safe, Rob, and have a good trip.
Peter's a little scratchy for me here. I'm still hearing it though. I'm at the intersection of 90 and 495.
Good copy, no problem. Copy every word, Rob. Safe trip. Try it again. Wait another 5 or 10 minutes, okay? Try it again. What the hell?
So I'm at the intersection of 90 and 495. I don't know how far away that is from home, but it's working pretty well still, as you can hear. A little scratchy for me, but John says I'm getting into it. We'll try it again further down the road. I realize it's pitch black. You guys can't see anything. But I'm going to give John a yell again here and see if you can hear me. I'm about halfway between 495 and 90 KB10YB. N1 NUG. Am I still making it? I'm hearing the repeater, but it's real scratchy for me. I don't know if I'm making it in, but this is probably about the limit right here, I would think. 7.3 for now. N1 NUG. So as you guys heard, I was getting into the repeater just fine. I can't hear it real good. I'm in Natick, about 5 miles from the intersection of 95. So that's not so bad. Now, I think from here, I could probably switch over to the Mount Wachusett repeater and should be able to hit that one. But John doesn't have that one programmed in just yet, so we'll have to try it another time. In the next series of clips, I tried the Mount Wachusett repeater one night after work. I was able to finally make contact with John, but he was struggling a little bit to hit the repeater from his house in Stafford, Connecticut. He's actually got two antennas, wire antennas in the yard. One is horizontal and the other is vertical. And what he found is he was able to tune up and transmit on the vertical to hit the repeater, but could only hear it on the horizontal. So he had to keep switching back and forth. Anyway, that's what you're about to hear in the next few clips. I know it's pretty dark in here, but I've got the Mount Wachusett 53.310 repeater ready to go. John's on standby. We're going to give him a yell and see if we can talk to him. KB1OYB, KB1OYB, N1 NUG.
N1NUG. Good evening from N1WSD.
N1 and WSD, N1 NUG. How you doing? I know we've talked before. I can't remember your name. I apologize.
Well, that's okay, because I'm in the same boat. I heard you call the other station, so at least I was watching, so at least say hello. This is Kevin. I really live in Oxford, but I'm currently in Worcester for a couple days at my second ham shack. Call me on the cell phone when you get a minute. KB1OYB.
That transmission wasn't bad, just a little bit scratchy. I got every word that time. So whatever you changed, it worked.
Roger, roger. Good copy on you and the station you were talking to. Excellent copy. It can transmit only on the vertical and tune the vertical. Cannot transmit on the horizontal. Only receive. 73. Enjoy the rest of the evening. I'll talk to you later. KB1OYB clear.
So after John got his setup figured out, he was able to get into the repeater, kind of barely, but he was able to get in and we were able to make a contact. So driving distance, as I said before, it was about 80 miles or so between where I am and where John is. So that's not bad. It's a snowy Friday afternoon. Time to head home to Connecticut. I'm gonna run the 6-meter repeater here and see if I can get John. Now, I'm not gonna make you guys listen to the whole conversation on the way home, but if anything noteworthy comes up, I'll definitely turn the camera on and let you guys listen in.
QKU testing.
Now, one thing I was curious about was whether or not the placement of my antenna on the trunk had any effect on how I was gonna be able to receive the repeater. In other words, on my way out to Boston on Monday, the way that the antenna was mounted, the repeater was behind me. And what that means is it might have been weaker, because if you were to look at the top of the car, it might have had sort of a stronger lobe facing sort of to the front and to the right of the car. Well, now I'm going the other way. So that theoretical lobe is pointed right at the repeater now. I'm at the intersection of 90 and 495, and I think I'm hearing it a little bit better than I was on the way out. So I just heard a station there. I think I'm going to throw my call, see if he comes back to me. Or maybe my friend John is in there. I think he was going to try and monitor for me on my way back. So let's give it a shot. KB1OYB, KB1OYB, N1 NUG. KB1OYB, KB1OYB, N1 NUG. Nothing heard. N1 NUG, clear and listening. So it's a little inconclusive without having somebody to talk to at the moment and kind of go back and forth so I can hear the repeater over the course of a few miles. But from the little bit that I sort of was able to hear, I really think that the antenna is somewhat directional based on where I have it placed on the car. So I'll have to keep that in mind when it's time to put something permanent together. Now, even though I'm a regular on 6-meter sideband, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I've never really used 6-meter repeaters before. So this was sort of a fun and interesting experiment this week to see how well they work, especially when I'm kind of far from home. Now, there are 1 or 2 2-meter repeaters that might work for us too and kind of cover the area that I'm going to be traveling in. But I think 6 meters is just going to work a little bit better due to sort of the propagation characteristics. So I'm going to continue to do a little bit more experimenting and tune that antenna in a little bit better on the car and see how well that improves my results. But I'm leaning towards putting something permanent for 6-meter FM in the car, especially since going forward I am going to be traveling to the outskirts of Boston from here in Connecticut at least once a week. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.